Good morning, everyone. I think we'll have some few people coming in as we go along here, but let's go ahead and get started.
All right, thank you, Corin. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Neurosom Investor Q&A webinar. We're going to go ahead and start off with Dawn Tucker, Neurosom's CEO and founder, giving a short presentation, and then we'll be moving into the Q&A section. So if you have questions today, please just drop them into the Zoom text chat, and then we will address them after Dawn's presentation. Without any further ado, I will give this over to Dawn.
Let me start my presentation here. My goal is to give a brief overview of Neurosom's plan to bring our electric sleep therapy to market. And really, just with this brief introduction, I'm hoping that we can stimulate questions that follow from this essential elementary outline. Our goal is to improve sleep, specifically deep sleep, with our electric sleep therapy. Sleep is a key problem. The Center for Disease Control has described it as a public health epidemic. It's a problem with normal function, but when it becomes extensive and chronic, we call it insomnia. And then there are interactions not only with the loss of sleep and the health impairments from that, but with other disorders such as anxiety, depression, and Parkinson's. Anxiety is often part of the syndrome of insomnia, and there's growing scientific understanding of the reciprocity between anxiety and insomnia. So it's the case that insomnia leads to more anxiety during waking function. And that's only recently being understood. And I think it's more generally understood that anxiety leads to insomnia. It leads to the loss of ability to fall asleep and to maintain good sleep. But we find that sleep disruption is important in many other disorders, including depression, where it's part of the mood disruption, but also disorders of aging, such as Parkinson's, where the loss of sleep exacerbates much of the impairment of daytime waking function in Parkinson's. So the question is really how to deal with it. And we've developed, really starting with our scientific research on the mechanisms of sleep, we've developed what we think of as a comprehensive approach where we have advanced technology for assessing the brain dysfunction of sleep in the clinic, but that the practical day-to-day therapy we can bring to the home situation, where we have technologies for monitoring sleep. And we also have technologies for influencing sleep through synchronizing it with our wireless interface sensor pod, the WISP technology. The assessment of high-density EEG was part of our scientific research that showed us the mechanisms of deep sleep. Once we understood those mechanisms, we also understood that we could target the deep limbic structures of the brain with a few electrodes. So that allowed us to couple our high density, or we call it high definition EEG, which we localized to the brain surface, as shown in the software analysis in the middle of the screen, together with the home intervention with a few electrodes applied on the head for manipulating the stages of deep sleep. Basically, we synchronize our electrical currents with the natural stages of deep sleep through detecting those with machine learning. And then that synchronization allows us to enhance and improve those stages of deep sleep. So there are a number of technologies we need to integrate to bring this work from our science studies in the laboratory to a usable home system. A key for it really is machine learning and the ability now to implement fairly complex convolutional neural net algorithms on nanocomputers, small machines from NVIDIA that we can use at the bedside. With that, we're able to then integrate a simple headband solution, which can be applied at home and used at home in order to achieve both the monitoring of the brain with machine learning and then the appropriate stimulation during the critical stage of deep sleep, which is the most important and restorative sleep, and which becomes impaired with anxiety and also with aging. So our plan really is fairly straightforward. We conduct the scientific research. We apply for patents for the unique features that are novel and haven't been used before, and that gives us intellectual property that we can then maintain as we develop the medical technology and services. And of course, then we publish scientifically and get peer review on this. And we've been fortunate to have general press coverage of this technology in addition to the scientific coverage. Going to market, we have to look carefully at how our technology interfaces with the existing sleep therapy and assessment techniques. And the thing I would emphasize is our development of the Neurosom sleep technology as a medical device, with FDA clearance being a key barrier to entry. And part of our fundraising here on the Red Crow platform is to conduct the FDA clinical trial. So our results so far show that we can synchronize and improve deep sleep in healthy adults. And we've now replicated that in an independent study that we're preparing for publication. But it's really the indications in medical disorders, particularly in insomnia, that we want to pursue next and to achieve the regulatory compliance for an FDA clearance in insomnia. So that's the core, really, not just of our science plan, but our business plan. We look at the insomnia market as the key target. And our goal is to be able to bring the complete package for treating insomnia to market in the near future with significant revenue that we can project once we achieve that initial traction and FDA clearance. In addition, we're very interested in the impairment of sleep that's integral to aging. So how do we understand and deal with that? The cognitive decline that many seniors experience can be traced to the impairment of sleep, not just in dementia, but in the normal cognitive decline of aging. The loss of N3, the deepest stage of sleep, is critical to that memory impairment. Can we reverse it? That's a second market that we're particularly interested in. This cognitive decline trial has recently been funded by the National Institutes of Aging. So we are able to proceed with that trial now with $2.2 million of funding from the NIA that we just received this week, actually. So we'll be announcing that on our website and updating the clinical trial plans right away, very soon. So with this framework, we think we have not only a scientific validation of our technology, but we also have a strategy for going to market that we've thought through fairly carefully, including the initial targets. There are many sleep centers, physicians who specialize in sleep. These are our key opinion leaders, a number of whom are now giving us advice and guidance on how to bring this to market for both medical concerns, but also the business reality of medical devices. So the reimbursement codes are particularly important, and we're looking at not only existing codes that allow us to bring this to market, but the new codes that will be particularly important to the unique feature of the sleep therapy that we can now bring in. Let me emphasize that our team has a long history of developing not only high-density electroencephalography, but products for medical clearance and with FDA clearance under 510K, as well as clinical trial mechanisms. We had many of the team members right now were part of our previous company, which we sold to Philips in 2017. So we have a good understanding of how to interface the medical device requirements with the scientific advances that we're able to make in our research laboratory. So let me conclude at that point and open it up for questions. This is kind of a brief overview, and it may not cover all the questions you have, but our goal for today's webinar is to allow some discussion and address those kinds of issues.
Dr. Tucker is really very interesting. I like what I hear. I'm actually a sleep specialist. I'm boarded in sleep medicine. I'm accredited sleep center. I'm one of those like 2,500, you speak of. So
Right.
how do you think like that will be integrated in a sleep center? How do you see that fit in, given the fact, cognitive behavior therapy, medication for insomnia, and given the fact, like insomnia by itself is diversified. I mean, there is many things might cause insomnia. Somebody's got arthritis, is going to be difficulty initiating, maintaining sleep. So how do you see that fit in my practice?
So in many ways, it will follow the indications for use that we develop from FDA. We have to look at the specific indications and kind of address them one at a time from our point of view. But from your point of view, it's really the sleep specialists who will guide us on how to bring this in for the complexity of real life problems that people have. You mentioned arthritis. We know you can't sleep well with pain. It's just a simple reality. So our marketing will be for insomnia or mild cognitive impairment, where we have indications for use from the FDA. That's really the regulatory framework. But what we're seeing is each of our key opinion leaders is teaching us about sleep interacting with medical disorders. And that will be a critical part, we think, of the introduction to practice. And that's not so much on Neurosom's side, that's really on the sleep physician side, through presentations at meetings and integration with the knowledge of sleep practice. I can give you an example of Parkinson's disease, where sleep is a critical problem. We have colleagues at Mount Sinai Medical Center in New York wanting to start a trial now to look at the specific issues in Parkinson's. Well, that won't be Neurosom's focus, but it's the kind of application to a real complex medical condition that will be key for bringing the sleep therapy to the market. And it gets already, you can see the complexity, because in Parkinson's, there's a REM behavior disorder where REM sleep breaks out into normal sleep. And it's different than what we're treating. We're treating N3, deep sleep. So you might think that this is not going to be effective. It's a different sleep disorder than what we're addressing.
Is the goal to increase N3? Is that what the Neurosom will do?
That's correct.
I mean, then I could definitely see other indications for it as well. So how would like a sleep center, like acquire the technology? I mean, so we will be like buying the device and market it in our office, or how is that will work? I mean, how are you going to partner with the sleep centers in order to expand the device and expand the technology?
Exactly. That's exactly one of the things that we're trying to understand. So part of our approach to the major sleep centers is to bring the high definition EEG into the mix for the initial assessment. So that's a key element that we're really looking. Not every center will have that. That will be the more advanced assessment. And from our point of view, that's clinically important to understand the various issues of neurophysiology that we can't assess with our simple home device. So that's one consideration. But the primary consideration, the physicians prescribing the Neurosom home sleep therapy, and Neurosom then making it easy for that prescription to result in use at home. So we provide the majority of the support for the patient. A key element is the sleep staging and the sleep assessment that we can now do with machine learning. Now, we also give the sleep EEG to the physician. So you can review that all-night sleep the way you would normally review EEG. But we are very confident now, and in fact, we are getting FDA clearance for the sleep staging that we do with machine learning. So our hope is that your practice is more streamlined without requiring a lot of time in reviewing the patient's record. You can look at a simple report and know, first of all, their sleep quality. We'll have subjective scoring from the patient in that report. We'll have the objective sleep staging in that report and the record of compliance with the intervention. So the hope is that your practice with the patient is facilitated by these services that we provide. And it's really the combination of what the patient is able to get and your ability to prescribe, review, and evaluate the effectiveness. That's really our model that we're trying to address in both cases.
Another good question for Dawn, asking what makes Neurosom's technology unique to other sleep therapies and companies addressing sleep issues?
Right now, we are the only company we understand that's using electrical synchronization of deep sleep and going for FDA clearance for that intervention. So by having the active machine learning during sleep, we can detect when the person's had sufficient N2 sleep that they're ready to go into N3. So we have a closed loop design that's fairly unique in that intervention.
And to follow up that question, how does the WISP compare to the DREAM system?
So the DREAM system was an early entry into being able to apply EEG during sleep. And so then they developed a intervention technology of acoustic stimulation. And some of the argument, I knew some of the scientists and working with Philips in introducing their acoustic stimulation in a similar way that DREAM did. And there was a concern that applying electrical current might be too scary or aversive to people. So they were going to use acoustic stimulation. That was the strategy that DREAM took as well. It's actually not a bad strategy. I think the acoustic stimulation should be something that Neurosom should be looking at once we establish our electric intervention. So there's good merit to it. DREAM did an interesting thing, was they weren't making much money from the consumer market. They were not getting very good traction. So they shut down their consumer sales, and now they're going toward more of a medical device regulatory sale with the acoustic stimulation. So we're kind of paying attention to their direction as well. But the technical difference is that we stimulate and synchronize deep sleep directly. DREAM's intervention now is acoustic stimulation.
Great, thank you, Dawn. And it looks like our next question is, how many EEG channels does the WISP have and where they are located?
So for sleep staging, we're using 3 EEG channels. 2 are located on the front lobe, and 1 is mastoid. And this algorithm is right now we finalized the clinical validation, and it's performing on the relatively on the same level as the human raters. And we're right now finalizing this submission to the FDA clearance as a separate clearance.
Thank you, Roma. This next question might be good for Fawn, asking if it's possible to submit a joint NIH application with Neurosom.
You bet. Thanks. It's possible. We're of course actively engaged in grant applications. So it really depends on the nature of the topic. If it's compatible with what we're doing, we would be very interested in speaking with whoever wants to collaborate.
Great. Thank you, Fawn. That question was from Christine De Lorenzo.
Yeah, let us know, Christine. We're definitely interested.
Great. Just for a little bit of background, I'm a brain imager, and I'm in the psychiatry department. I'm interested in the common pathways between sleep disturbance and mood disturbance. So I'd be really interested to do brain imaging before and after using your product.
That's right. That's right. And in specific mood disorders, we think that's a key topic. So that's a great direction. So we'd be interested in grant submissions or even possible clinical trial alignment for that.
Great.
Particularly, I'll just emphasize the specifics. If you're interested in anxiety, that would be the direction where we have key interest in the neural mechanism, where neural imaging could help us look at those mechanisms of anxiety and how they overlap with deep sleep, particularly. So those are great topics.
Great, thanks. Looks like our next question is asking maybe if Dawn could elaborate more on the stimulation protocol.
You bet. So we wait for 4 minutes of N2. So we have real-time continuous machine learning convolutional neural net classification of the EEG stages. So when we detect N2 sleep, primarily by spindles and occasional slow oscillations, we wait for 4 minutes. And that's kind of the minimum N2 that we think is typical to engage, be ready for N3. At that point, we then have basically a half an hour protocol. It's 5 minutes of slow oscillation synchronization. So this is 0.75 hertz stimulation, sine waves that are what synchronizes the N3. We do it on for 5 minutes, off for 1 minute of a rest interval, and then we do that 6-minute cycle 5 times. And that gets us to a half an hour of total stimulation. And then the question is, does it enhance N3 for the rest of the night? And indeed it does. It's not only that direct synchronization during the stimulation, but it seems to enhance the likelihood of a deeper N3 the next cycle of sleep.
Great, thank you, Dawn. And this might be a good question for Justin, asking if there's any updates from key researchers or physicians who have used the WISP.
Yeah, so we have a few exciting groups using it, and we get updates all the time. Just 1 day ago, I received a new update from a group at Northwestern. They have an interesting project ongoing, looking at individuals with Down syndrome, and they're collecting sleep data. One of the physicians was very excited being able to use this bedside in this latest collection. So that's one exciting update. We had another institution, they had an internal poster that they produced in a very short amount of time after receiving the WISP, which I think is great. It shows that we've got polished training and we've got a system to get them data quickly, which sometimes it can take a while to get a new device and use it. So we're glad to see that our background in doing all this puts together kind of a nice collection that they can use right from the start.
Great. Thank you, Justin.
You know, just add that this is in many ways the way that we think we'll articulate our medical practice is the use of physicians as they're showing us the population and the realities of having a device that we ship to the patient, that we take care of the support, etc. The reports that we give back to the physician to allow them to monitor, etc., are critical. So we have a plan, and this has been advised by key opinion leaders, but plans have to change. So this active interaction with physicians is going to be key.
If anyone has any additional questions, don't be shy to ask them. Sure thing. This one is asking maybe Fawn or Don what the timeline looking for the rest of the year is for Neurosom.
Well, really the main focus is on getting the insomnia trial started. That's really our focus. Preparing for that in terms of preparing the regulatory sort of setup for running such a trial, recruiting, and enrolling participants. And we're also actually looking at sites that can collaborate with us on such a clinical trial. So that's our focus for the year.
Yeah, that's the key. The key reason really we're raising money on the Red Crow platform is to bring that insomnia trial into reality. Now, we also have this new funding from NIA for the mild cognitive impairment. So we'll be organizing that trial as well. In fact, we'll be meeting today with a couple of our physician colleagues to articulate that design. What are the final questions that we're going to consider? The phase 1 was successful in showing that we could do the Neurosom's electric sleep therapy at home with seniors with MCI. And so this is not a small challenge. Developing a device that not only has Bluetooth connections to the dock, but also has to connect with the internet to give reports back to the physician. There's quite a bit of technical work in setting that up in your home and getting it to work. But we actually, the only reason we got the phase 2 award is that we succeeded with that. We had a sample of 10 seniors in Wake Forest University and 10 here in Oregon that actually turned out to be quite successful. We gave them good support and training, but then they were able to run this at home on their own. So that trial will be another goal that will be starting soon.
Great. And I might have a question that Roma could help answer. Received asking about latency issues and the latency of the WISP detecting sleep stages and the resulting deployment of the TES and what the latency looks like between detecting and deployment of treatment.
It's a good question. So we are detecting N2 stage of sleep, but the part that WISP protocol, we're not interested in particular electrophysiological signature. So we don't need to do a sub-millisecond or millisecond level synchronization. So that's where the data, we analyze sleep stages in 30 seconds of chunks of data. And then once the analysis is performed after detecting sufficient amount of this sleep stage and two sleep stages, the stimulation starts. So overall, the data, the time interval between the detecting the sleep stage and the onset of the stimulation is a few hundred of milliseconds. And but even though, and with this said, even if we delay more by second, 2 or 3, it doesn't really matter, because what happens here, we're just interested to start and train brain to keep this and to slow oscillations. So whether we start 10 milliseconds or even 30 seconds after, it doesn't really matter.
So we are now, our project is funded by the U.S. Army and their medical group. And the goal really is to use the Neurosom sleep therapy to enhance deep sleep, or not, to have a sham condition, and then to measure glymphatic clearance the next morning with their gadolinium contrast agent, as well as some non-contrast agent MRI techniques. So that project is now funded. It's ongoing. They're using the WISP. We're training their group up, and we hope to get results. Now, I think following from that will be an opportunity to engage in clinical trials if we can get good metrics. It's tough. I'll say just from the work so far in that trial, it's difficult to get MRI measures that we reliably can track the glymphatic clearance. It's proving awkward. Yeah, no, this is a very important topic. It's not an easy one, but we are hoping our technology will prove useful on the sleep enhancement end of it, because we can improve deep sleep, certainly in healthy adults. That's now well replicated. Now, whether we can in various other medical conditions, we have to be careful, because there are real challenges, and we don't want to claim what we haven't proven. Here's the version 5. And it's much cleaner. We've been able to miniaturize the electronics, close it up into the top of the headband, and then just have simple stick-on electrodes for the key positions.
Yeah, and most everyone who's tried it, and we've tried it on quite a few people, find it, they say it's surprisingly comfortable.
We're particularly interested in integrating more sensors. Roma's got a plan that will be able to use some infrared sensors for NIRS for cerebral oxygenation. But as you know, our history shows us that every new generation has new problems and things that have to be fixed. So this one we're going to stay with. And in fact, this is the device we hope to first bring to medical practice and to FDA clearance, even as we're building the next ones in the background. Our plan is to go to FDA and CMS, Medicaid, simultaneously. So if we can get them to give a reimbursement, our goal really is to have a breakthrough device, so we get parallel FDA and CMS at the same time. So right now we are doing our second replication of enhancing deep sleep in healthy adults. We'll take that to them. It could be this fall, I think. Do you think, Fawn, that that's a reasonable time frame?
Yeah, we can shoot for it. This all depends on our flow, meaning recruitment and enrollment.
That's right.
So, yeah, so that's a little tougher to predict.
The insomnia trial, however, will probably lead us through at least another year for all the patient recruitment and things that we
Yes.
have. And that's the indication for use that's going to be most important. Every application we're trying to be specific about.
Yep.
And the two unique ones will be insomnia, but also the mild cognitive impairment. And there, the goal really is to improve memory. If we can improve memory in seniors, that will be huge. If we can just improve their sleep, that would also be an indication for use. Appreciate your joint coming out and hearing what we have to say.
Thank you.
Great.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thanks.